We've all been there. We go to use an awesome spell or an ability against the big bad boss monster, and just when it fails its save, the DM says these cursed words. It uses a legendary resistance. Strap in for controversy, because today we're going to talk about my personal gripes with legendary resistances, as well as a variant structure to legendary encounters that keeps them both mechanically balanced and invites deeper role-playing possibilities. Hi everyone, my name is John from DM Shower Thoughts, where we find our best selves through gaming. Now, like I said before, I have some personal gripes with legendary resistances, and rather than just kind of dwell on the problem, today I'm going to offer a variant structure to boss battles. Now, to get everyone on the same page, legendary resistances are one set of tools that are added to certain monsters in 5th edition in order to create more intense combats. These legendary monsters aren't just like any other creature, and they're designed to be able to take on an entire party of adventurers themselves. Certain features like layer actions and legendary actions help a legendary creature's action economy, so that just because there are more players than there are legendary creatures doesn't mean that it's a fair fight. Now, legendary creatures are also designed to be tougher than average monsters, and that's represented through a game mechanic called legendary resistance. What this means is should a legendary creature fail its saving throw, they can choose to succeed instead. Now, on its own, legendary resistance isn't too bad of a balancing mechanic to give these legendary creatures an extra edge. However, my problem with it is legendary resistance isn't the only defense that legendary creatures are given. A lot of legendary creatures also have magic resistance, meaning that they have advantage on saving throws against spells and magical effects. In my experience, most choices that a player has that involve some kind of saving throws end up being either spells or magical effects, meaning the likelihood that a legendary creature would fail a save like that is greatly reduced already. Also, many times when a creature goes to make a saving throw, it's to avoid a condition, and a lot of legendary creatures have an immunity to a wide spectrum of conditions, meaning that it doesn't matter if they fail the saving throw because they're immune to the effect that saving throw would inflict on it. Then, even if you can get past those immunities or magic resistance, on the off chance that the creature fails a saving throw, it's covered by a legendary resistance. In my experience, as with a recent game I just played, this means there's an entire category of abilities that basically have almost a 0% chance of being effective. And also, think of the storytelling limitations that you just put on your players. Now again, this has been mostly my experience as both a DM and a player in how legendary resistances go about, and experiences do differ wildly. No matter if you agree or disagree with me, though, on my take on legendary resistances, it doesn't invalidate the variant structure I'm going to present now. So, I present you with the Dynamic Boss Battle System. With this system, set-piece encounters or legendary encounters are broken into a 3-act structure. Now, I use this language to specifically draw your attention to the story of a major encounter, as well as mechanics that can convey the feeling of the changes in that encounter. Like I said before, if a creature both has a bevy of immunities, as well as magic resistance, it means it's not often using its legendary resistances. What this means is a lot of encounters end up as a pure damage slog. And while players can be very descriptive narratively of how they roll their attack rolls, mechanically it's not a very interesting exchange. Damage slogs don't make interesting stories, and they lack dynamic changes that force the players to reconsider their position. So, let's pretend we're up against a big bad boss monster. It begins with Act 1, the Exposition. This is a stage where the party and the legendary creature are testing each other out. The players may try out some of their mid-level abilities and spells to see what the legendary creature is resistant to, immune to, what works against it, and trying to trigger some of those legendary resistances. A lot of legendary creatures start with 3 legendary resistances per day. So what we'll say is that in Act 1, that legendary creature has 3 legendary points. If it wants to, that legendary creature can use one of its legendary points to use a legendary resistance. This way, the fight won't end too quickly. Now, once the players have dealt a third of its hit points in damage, Act 1 ends and Act 2 begins. Act 2 may be signaled by a transformation in the creature, access suddenly to its layer actions, or unlocking a power it had been storing away while it was still testing out the players. Now, if the players had been neglecting trying to use up the creature's legendary points with legendary resistances, then the creature's Act 2 action is even more powerful. The creature can use its unused legendary points in order to deal a massive area of effect damage, or something else that could change the situation between the players and the creature. Now, legendary points from Act to Act are also use them or lose them. So once we get to Act 2, the creature has a different amount of prepared legendary points that it can use. It's almost like the DM gets their own inspiration that the players are often awarded. And again, these legendary points are designed for great storytelling moments, not to overwhelm the players or end the fight too early. Although, depending on how the dice roll, that might be an outcome. So Act 2 begins. An example of this might be in Act 1, the creature seemed pretty powerful, but the players were getting ahead of it. In Act 2, suddenly it starts using layer actions, it might have a lot more powers. You may even give it more legendary points in Act 2 to show the rising action of the fight, and that even though the players are dealing it more and more damage, they're having a tougher and tougher time kind of keeping up with it. And that's where we get to the climax, Act 3. Now, the key thing with Act 3 is the creature loses its legendary points. Even if it hasn't used a legendary resistance all fight, the creature doesn't have any legendary resistances in Act 3. The creature may also get desperate and might start using abilities it normally wouldn't. Think of it like a cornered animal. Although it's tired, damaged, hurt, it might even get a bonus to its attack and damage rolls, kind of like bloodied creatures from 4th edition. However, this is the time for the party to use their best spells and abilities, because if they can get through that magic resistance, then it might change the fight for their favor. This is the chance to use spells like Feeble Mind or Polymorph, things that if they were used too early, then it would negate the challenge of the encounter. But now, because during Act 3, the players expect and know that their stuff can work, they're more likely to try out-of-the-box options to create more glorious finishes to fights that are supposed to be legendary. For example, how would you want your legendary encounter to end? Would you rather it end from an off-the-cuff firebolt that a player luckily rolled, or would you rather it end with a huge 8th level spell like an earthquake that can consume the entire creature and add this awesome cinematic effect? The other thing is that this 3-act structure follows a plot diagram like most good stories, where there's an exposition, some rising action, some hurdles in the middle during Act 2, some unexpected surprises and twists, and at the end of Act 3, you have the triumph, you have them overcoming. Or not, Act 3 is also the time where the creature gets more dangerous, so maybe it has access to damaging features that it didn't in Act 1 and 2. And it's also more vulnerable, so this is the time that the players have the chance to finish it off. Now, this is by no means original. Anyone who's played their fair share of RPG video games can see this coming a mile away. Also, other DMs have been known to break down their set-piece encounters into various stages in order for that cinematic effect. The thing I'm adding to this is, once a creature is damaged enough, remove its legendary resistances. Let your players use their coolest spells and abilities, and you create a vulnerability for the legendary creature at the right time so that you don't negate the challenge of the encounter, but also to let your players have this glorious finishing blow moment. Now, does this idea sound cool to you, or is there a flaw in it you can point out to me so I can make this system even better? If you want other ways that you can kind of spice up your 5th edition combat, I did do a video on 5 homebrew rules that I use. My favorite is the called shot threshold, and you can check out the video in the cards above. Now just remember to subscribe, hit the little notification bell, and game responsibly. Bye-bye now.